Hi everybody, this is John from Incendium D&D, and today what we're going to be looking at is the new Unearthed Arcana that came out recently, Heroes of Krynn, which is giving us some playtest material for the Dragonlance setting. So Ray Winiger, who is I believe the lead on D&D's tabletop game, announced a little while ago that we should be receiving some classic settings updated for the 5th edition rule set. So I was pretty excited. A little while ago, we got Travelers of the Multiverse, which to me was starting to speak to Spelljammer. And one of these things about these Unearthed Arcana is they give us a sneak peek into some of the products that are currently in development from Wizards. So if you followed our podcast, DM Shower Thoughts, we were really seeing Unearthed Arcana like week after week, it felt like, because they were preparing for the content that would come out in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. So today we're going to be taking a look at Heroes of Krynn. I'm not really going to go over every little single thing in this document. Probably the thing I'm going to pick apart and spend the most time on is what I find the most exciting part, which is the Lunar Magic Sorcerer. But we will talk a little bit about everything, giving some initial impressions, maybe some predictions for the future. So let's get into it. So the first thing we get in this document, just some typical generic ancestry language in our post-Tasha's game state. So things about how ability score increases work now, default lifespans, height and weight, creature types, languages, all that stuff. And we do get a new race option, which is the Kender. Well, a new updated option, I should say. I will be the first person to admit I started with 5th edition. I know a lot of these settings, like Faerun and Dragonlance, have been around since the 80s. Sorry to say, I'm new to the game. So it's kind of like in our review for the Critical Role content. Because I'm not like a fan of this, I feel like I have a pretty fresh perspective on some of the lore, some of the mechanics. It also means that I'm going to be pretty immune to any "they've ruined my precious Dragonlance" syndrome. But that being said, I don't really know the world of Krynn that well. I know dragons are a big part of it. I know they have a pretty tight pantheon too. It was really interesting in the back of the player's handbook, looking at the different fantasy pantheons and seeing some of the examples. One thing I noticed about Dragonlance is just how tight it is and how tight alignment's relationship with deities tend to be. So the Kender, really, I'm having a hard time separating how Kender are significantly different lore-wise than halflings. They're both humanoids with diminutive stature and pointed ears. You know, they've got a small size. One of the things I have also noticed, and I know a lot of people have commented on too, I think they're getting rid of speed based on race. So I think everyone's default speed is going to be 30 moving forward, especially with the new printings of the player's handbook. There will probably be certain races like Wood Elf that might have a slight boost to their speed. But I do notice here that their speed is 30. They're brave, just like halflings. Again, I'm not super educated on Kender's legacy lore. I do know I was talking to a player once, and we were strangers, but we had D&D in common. We were just chatting back and forth. I remember him being really excited about, Kenders are like kleptomaniacs, and aren't they just so silly? I do kind of have this little bit of toward Kender, because it's not a playstyle I'm super interested in, the meme rogue stealing from the party or the meme paladin being all righteous and lawful good all the time. When I'm looking at these mechanics, I don't really know what to make of them. Kender Ace is kind of interesting. It starts at 3rd level. It's a bonus action, meaning you're not giving up your regular action. So you can take out something random, it looks like, whether they're gold pieces or a random item from the trinkets table. There is like a slight magical glow to the objects, so I don't see them getting away with, say, pulling out 5d6 gold pieces and using that to pay a merchant and then having to leave and have the gold mysteriously disappear. But I can see it for maybe tricking a monster, depending on what kind of lore the different monsters of your world have. Especially for something like Mythic Odysseys of Theros, which is based on Greek mythology. If you're playing a more mythological campaign, I can see how, you can trick a monster by giving it some gold to let you pass, knowing full well that the monster is not smart enough, perceptive enough to understand that this gold is about to disappear. Mythological D&D is not exactly my cup of tea. Personally, I prefer a more scientific D&D, kind of like what you experience in the quest designs of The Witcher. Yes, there's magic, yes, there's curses, yes, there's mythical elements, but there is also an anatomy to monsters. There's a reason they can do what they do. Dragons don't breathe fire just because they can breathe fire. Dragons have a special gland that allows them to fire a hormone, kind of like a squid shooting ink, and then just some sort of part of their anatomy ignites that hormone, which causes their breath weapon to happen. Those are the kind of monsters and the kind of lore I like for my worlds. So to have this, they can just magically pop out a random item from your choice from the adventuring gear table. I don't know how into that I am. But again, maybe they're a secret halfling tribe, kind of like Ghostwise or something. I don't know. And then there's also Taunt, which to me is bonus action Vicious Mockery without the damage. Not that the damage of Vicious Mockery is why anyone's picking it up in the first place. What I also find interesting is Taunt has DC equal to 8 plus proficiency bonus plus charisma modifier, kind of like the other races in a post-Tasha's world. A lot of the innate spellcasting based on your ancestry selection has tended toward you can pick intelligence, wisdom, or charisma. So it's interesting to see a race stick to that charisma modifier, even though the ability score increases can be allocated wherever you want. So that's pretty much the Kender. I guess I have mixed feelings on it. I don't see myself bending over backwards to integrate them in my campaign world. But again, if you're a fan of Dragonlance, I guess this is a 5th edition update if you're here for it. Now, this is my favorite part. This is the Lunar Magic Sorcerer subclass. So I actually, to be honest, I just got done listening to a live stream where Jim Davis from WebDM broke down all this stuff. I did not know how integral the moons of Krynn were to that setting's magic system, or how it plays into who gets magic, who doesn't. I don't have any of that going in. What I'm looking at is Moon Magician. That's kind of the thing that I'm looking for. And I'm trying to think, I don't think sorcerers have like a Fey subclass. I feel like everyone else has a Fey subclass. Paladins have a Fey subclass. You know, you got College of Glamour for bards, you've got Archfey for warlock, you've got Oath of Ancients for paladin. It's interesting that Sorcerer is one that I would think would have some kind of Fey subclass, but doesn't have it yet. To me, a lot of what's happening with Lunar Magic kind of also speaks to that Fey-Wild connection, and I don't know why. Like, they don't mention Fey at all in this thing besides Fairy Fire. But it's just something that I'm looking at some of the abilities for Lunar Magic, and that Fey connection just is in mind. Maybe it's also because Wild Beyond the Witchlight is like the latest like module too. I don't know. They do try to make it generic, which is something that I actually look for in a subclass. I think subclasses that are too setting dependent are less likely to see play. Hello, cats. You guys are getting noisy back there. And of course, I always love these optional manifestation tables where they give you some ideas for how your magic may manifest in terms of your character's description without locking you in. In my latest campaign, I have somebody playing a clockwork sorcerer, and they're using these little prompts to help describe their sorcerer's clockwork magic. And it's made the game a lot more engaging and actually has helped me as the DM world build a little bit more intentionally. Looking at the actual features, just to give you a heads up, one of my other favorite content creators, Treant Monk, has this really, to me, sensible policy. When you're looking at what a subclass or something has to offer, look at its lower level abilities first. Those lower level features are more likely to see play, not only because most campaigns go from 1st to 10th level, but also because if you're going to multi-class or, you know, no matter what level of play you're going to be at, even if it's say like 20th level for whatever reason, you're always going to see like the 1st and 6th level features, for example. but you're less likely to use the 10th, 14th, and 18th level features as often. Looking at the first one, I love this. The name of the moon will punish you.
I am Sailor Moon!
So Moonfire! You get Sacred Flame, but you get to hit 2 people with it, so it's like a free twinned Sacred Flame. You get the John stamp of approval for that one. I love that sorcerers are the cantrip class, and anything that makes their cantrips more effective, I think is pretty cool. I think that warlocks have too much of a monopoly on the useful cantrip economy. I like seeing sorcerers get a boon thrown to them. And then Lunar Embodiment is kind of neat. I'm not sure I'm fully into the flavor of shifting the different aspects of the moon, but I do really like these spell lists, and I like that you can change the spell lists. To me, this can also embody a character whose magic shifts with their emotion. Again, looking back at that base stuff. So, for example, looking at the full moon spells, Fairy Fire, Moonbeam. I know Death Ward's a mistake. That's a 4th level spell. It shouldn't be gained at 5th character level. Freedom of Movement, Mass Cure Wounds. The New Moon spells, Dissonant Whispers, Darkness is the evil ones, Black Tentacles, Bestow Curse. Then the Crescent Moon one is somewhere in between Sanctuary, Blindness, Deafness, Dream, which I don't see enough. I like when sorcerers get more spells. One thing I'm very looking forward to in the 2024 updates, edits, 5.5 release of the Player's Handbook is updates to the older subclasses of Sorcerer. I think Draconic Sorcerer just needs an expanded spell list, and it's perfectly as playable as any of the other ones. To reiterate, these first level features are the most important in terms of multi-classing power, in terms of likeliness for actually seeing play. So moving on, Lunar Boons. What I think is kind of neat is that, so the lunar phases influence your meta magic. Whenever you use meta magic on a spell from the lunar spells table or a spell of a school of magic associated with the lunar phase you're in, you reduce the sorcery points spent by 1. That is definitely new, and it's definitely very powerful. I like that it's not too powerful, though. For everybody to remember, Subtle Spell only costs 1 sorcery point. And if a caster can't perceive you casting the spell, like with Subtle Spell, then they can't counter it or do any shenanigans for it. So even though Monsters of the Multiverse printed a whole bunch of new monsters that have more innate spell casting, so they have less spells that you can counter, everyone's upset about it. You kind of can with this too. The players get a similar kind of option. So I could definitely see myself, say, taking the full moon sorcerer, being able to subtle cast counter spell. That's actually really mean. I can't remember the exact wording on meta magic if you can use it on reactions, but that's pretty funny. Right now, between the spell list of Fairy Fire and full moon being Abjuration Conjuration, which I think Abjuration is by far one of the strongest schools established in 5e, this is a pretty competitive subclass. Not overpowered yet. I haven't gotten to a feature where I'm sitting here like, Lunar! And then Waxing and Waning. So as a bonus action, you can spend a sorcery point to change your lunar phase for a different one. That's pretty neat. To go back to the actual list though, yeah, I could definitely see, say, being like a 10th level character. Something I didn't mention. Lunar Embodiment, you get to change the phase at the end of every long rest, so you can kind of prep for whatever session you're going into. But I like how it's like a free reset, and also you can switch mid-combat, especially if you're not playing a Quicken Eldritch Blast bot like I usually do with Sorcerer. I think it's cool to, say, go in thinking you're going to be Fairy Firing a lot, but needing to shift because you need Sanctuary, or Bestow Curse for whatever reason is the perfect tool for the job. So being able to spend a sorcery point, bonus action, flip around your spell list, I think it's neat. I don't know how powerful it is because I haven't played this because this just came out, but I think it's a neat idea, and I think it's definitely something the designers should keep in mind for developing further sorcerer classes. That brings us to the 14th level feature, which is Lunar Empowerment. In the name of the moon.
I'll punish you.
You just basically get a bonus little boon, depending on what your lunar phase you chose at the end of your long rest is. And again, I like how this calls back to waxing and waning, because now you can switch out these boons along with the spell list. So with the full moon, you shed bright light in a 10-foot radius and an additional 10 feet. In addition, you and creatures of your choice have advantage on saves while within the bright light you shed. That is good. New moon, you have advantage on stealth checks, and when you're in dim light or darkness, attack rolls have disadvantage against you. So again, especially if you're a 14th level character, if you're a 14th level caster, the bad guys, if they're smart, might be like, oh, they're the one that keeps fireballing us. They might start aiming for you. Especially depending on your character's positioning, you may want to swap out advantage on saving throws for attack rolls can't hurt me as bad. And it also lets you assess what kind of fight you're in. If you're in, say, more of a martial combat, where your enemies are making a lot of attack rolls, advantage on saving throws sounds awesome unless you're not making any saving throws. So again, to shout him out, Treant Monk just launched a short at the time of this recording about how Bless is not always the best answer. Sometimes Bane is a good answer. In the same way, if you're dealing with a magic user type that's forcing your party to make saves round after round, it might be worth the one sorcery point and the bonus action to shift to the full moon empowerment, so that way you have advantage on all your saves. Likewise, if you're fighting a bunch of archers that aren't forcing you to make a lot of saves, it doesn't make sense to keep the full moon up. And the last one, Crescent Moon, you have a resistance to Necrotic and Radiant. Most people I know that are playing Sorcerers anyway pick Aasimar to begin with. Freaking Aasimars. And the last one is Lunar Phenomenon. Your lunar phase magic bursts! As a bonus action, you can tap into a special power of the lunar phase you are currently in. Alternatively, as part of your bonus action, you can change your lunar phase immediately and use the power of the lunar phase you're entering. Once you use a phase's bonus action, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest, or unless you spend 5 sorcery points. These are equivalent to a 3rd level spell. That you get for free as a bonus action once, or you can switch between them, which is pretty neat. As a bonus action, again, each creature of your choice within 30 feet must succeed a con save or be blinded. In addition, one creature of your choice regains 3d8 hit points. Not bad, especially as a free bonus action. I mean, you are 18th level at this point, so some of the major things you're fighting, I can see just being immune to blinded. Instant regain 3d8 hit points from a sorcerer subclass isn't bad. So the new moon, so again, this activates as a bonus action. Each creature of your choice within 30 feet must succeed on a dex save or take 3d10 necrotic damage and have its speed reduced to 0. That is significant. In addition, you become invisible until the end of your next turn or until you make an attack or cast a spell. Yeah, to me, the moon one seems more powerful. The new moon one, the darkness one, the necrotic, the evil one. I guess blinded you're affecting, if they're blinded, all of your allies also have advantage. Okay, I guess I buy that. So yeah, and then Crescent Moon, you can magically teleport to an unoccupied space within 60 feet of yourself. And in addition, you gain resistance to all damage until the start of your next turn. Not bad. One of the things about Tasha's, and as I remember reading through the Unearthed Arcana that would eventually be released as Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, one of the things that I'm particularly sensitive about is power creep. I think that if you release a more powerful thing, that is not healthy for the game. I think that if you have something that's just better, everyone's going to want to do that thing. And somebody that doesn't want to do that thing is almost going to be punished because they won't be as effective and won't feel like they're contributing as much story. This one, to me, has some interesting ideas that I don't think are overpowered. I don't think that this is, say, as strong as Clockwork Sorcerer, but it's not weak like Wild Magic Sorcerer. I do think it would be neat to have kind of a randomness to the lunar cycle. So, for example, if you are a 1st level Lunar Magic Sorcerer, maybe at the end of each long rest, you have to roll a d6, and that randomly determines which phase you have access to. But as you get higher in level, now you can begin to choose at the end of a long rest which benefit you're going to gain. So it's like you don't have as much control over your power to start, but as you level up, you get more and more control over it. And maybe there's also a bonus for going randomly. What do I know? Overall, I think that this is a pretty solid subclass. If a player were to come to me today and say, in your next game, I want to play a Lunar Magic Sorcerer, I would probably okay it. If they said a Kender, I don't think the Kender option is powerful. I just don't like it. And I don't have a good reason for it. I just think that Taunt and Kender Ace, I don't know. I don't like it. The last thing here, and the thing I'm going to spend the least amount of time on, are the backgrounds and feats. There are like 10 feats in here. There are 2 backgrounds. The most significant thing is that each of these backgrounds, instead of having some like narrative flavorful feature, they just give you a feat. So the Knight of Solamnia background gives you the feat Squire of Solamnia. And same thing for the other background, which is Mage of High Sorcery. If there was some sort of like retcon where all backgrounds grant you some sort of feat, I'd actually be a lot more okay with this. I don't think that feats should be part of your background. I think D&D, the choices of character building are interesting enough with how backgrounds already are in the game. I also don't like the backgrounds of Strixhaven for the same reason. I think that if you're a DM and you want to give something to someone, you should give it to everyone. So if you're going to play a Dragonlance game and you have a player that wants to be a Mage of High Sorcery, I don't think it's healthy for your table to let them get a bonus feat and make everyone else work for it, because they won't conform to the preconceived organizations of your world. I know that there's like a little sidebar here about magic and Dragonlance. The thing about the feats is that pretty much you start mostly with those 2, the Squire and the Initiate of High Sorcery. They have this thing you can see here, like Adept of the Black Robes, Adept of the White Robes, where there are all these prerequisites, like you have to be at least 4th level and have this feat, and it's bringing back a little bit of feat chaining, which if you play Pathfinder or 3rd edition D&D, that was how you built characters. What I found to be the issue with that is, even though there were a lot of options, there were only a few viable options or competitive options. Whereas feats, as they are, in my experience anyway with 5th edition, by having to choose between better stats or a feat, you at least have some kind of risk reward, some kind of interesting choice to make. Obviously, there are optimized builds in 5e like in any game, but I find that it's easier for me as a player to reconcile and balance out, am I taking this feat because it's going to allow me to outperform the challenges the DM is presenting, or am I taking it because it makes an interesting story or it rounds out my character's performance? I don't like this feat chaining thing. I just don't. Even though there's a lot of feats here, just in general, they pretty much grant you like bonus proficiencies or bonus low-level spells or something like that. I don't know. I'd rather the DM grant that narratively than have it be part of your character's official build. So if your DM makes it clear to everyone has the opportunity to join the Mages of High Sorcery, and only one player does, and they get a bonus cool thing that ties to their character, then great. To formalize it within the game system like this, I'm not sure how on board I am with it. The last thing that you'll notice reading through this document yourself is they make a lot of references to alignment. Personally, I'm not a big fan of alignment. Like I said at the beginning of this whole thing, Dragonlance is intimately tied to the alignment cosmology. I think that if you're really excited for Dragonlance and really excited for an old school type game, good for you. I don't think 5th edition's rule set is going to give you the rush that you're looking for, but I could be wrong because I'm not you. I think that 5th edition's strength lies in the fact that it really gives bare bones enough mechanics to offer DMs and players alike some inspiration for their descriptions and their narrative. I don't think that it's crunchy. I think Pathfinder is an excellent alternative for players that are looking for that crunchier experience. I think that introducing more crunch into 5th edition is not the way. But that's just my opinion. I want to know yours. Are you excited about the material presented in Heroes of Krynn? Are you someone that loves Dragonlance or is excited for Dragonlance coming out? Let me know in the comments down below. Remember to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell, and we'll see you at the next one. Bye-bye now.